I actually ended tape 20 with a pan of this park from over there. I'll continue on this tape with a view of the fountain in this park and then move on. So now we'll continue down there to the left and explore what looks like a pretty good sized market. Of course, this is a Saturday, so it might be a peak day also. This is probably the partial remains of a wall and maybe even a fortress tower in the wall opposite where I think Diocletian's palace is, which is what I think all of this is. Now, to understand this, okay, so you pronounce it Diocletian.
As it's written. Like
Diocletian. Diocletian, however you pronounce that, after he retired, which he did, kind of like Cincinnatus, he retired to this area because apparently this is where he was born, so he had roots here, and built a huge palace, which over time, long after he had gone and the Romans had gone, the palace was, for lack of a better word, inundated with homes, in part, not only because it was good real estate, there was building material from the palace for those homes, but the homes served to support, if you will, the inside wall of the fortress or the palace, pretty much as you see that building perhaps doing there. Everything that we're looking at here in the way of the wall, other than the obvious inserts that are new, represents probably the original palace, for the reasons I stated. We'll go inside after we've explored this big market. And this is not it. This is just a road leading down to certainly a recent entry, but there's an entry portal to the palace. So we'll explore all of that later. This is definitely a tourist city, but it's not the Dubrovnik cruise ship tourist city. And there's a whole different level of tourism when you're talking about cruise ships. I'm going to take a spur road just because I can. Some cheese from that lady. There's two vendors here at least. Just anything and everything in this market. This is going to be a lot of fun. There's another cheese vendor there. Fruits. Same old, same old. It's just always fun to come to a marketplace. Anybody that starves here is either broke or had their mouth wired shut. She had smoked figs. Let me try one. Evidenced her disbelief when I said, I'll come back. That's why maybe I will. In a much quieter area where clothing and so forth are sold. I'm at the southeast corner of the market right now. This will give you a rough idea. It goes as far down as that wall that you can see, and then all the way back up to where we started. There to the left and down along this way here is where the bus station is. That's where I came up from. I'm just panning up through a totally different section than I was in before. You can see the wall of some building that's adjacent to the palace over there. And you can see that there's another wall of shops there and beyond another section of this market. I love green peas in the pod, but here they're old. In other words, they've been taken off the vine after they've been too ripe, and then they're allowed to sit around till the husks actually get dry. And that taste is very different from a fresh pea, which I love by the bag from shops that are more permanent, like meat and fish. I don't see here's ones that are peeled, but that means they're old. Or they wouldn't do it, I don't think. I haven't seen since I think somewhere in Montenegro were cucumbers that are the pickling kind, because those are so good you don't have to take the peel off, but the ones that look like the ones sold in America, you do. Okay, so now we're moving into a totally different section of the market here. Imagine being able to do this every couple of days, come here and get whatever you needed for fresh salads and so forth. Look how fresh this is, and probably all what we would call whatever the eco-friendly food name is, I can't remember right now. And a whole section, big section on flowers. There's no excuse for not decorating your home or your family's grave sites. There's just another exterior pan here at what formerly was a very interesting part of the palace, maybe even one of the main entrances. One can only imagine what was in that alcove. And it looks like there are residences or something up above. That's pretty neat. So they incorporated their newer buildings into the old wall. I'm going to walk down the same road again, look for a shirt, and then go inside here. Here far to the left, when you're facing with the sea to your back to the city or the old town, they're redoing this portion of the front, which should be a beautiful development for what looks like the modern office building as well as apartments. You can see their area of this waterfront. But we're out of the old town now. Down there along that waterfront to the right is the bus station, and I think also the ferry boat leaves from there to go to Hvar. There are cruise lines here. And back there in the distance, I think a couple of the very large ones, probably that were at Dubrovnik early on, and maybe even Kotor. But the impact is not the same as it is in Dubrovnik. Can you just imagine the stories, the adventures, the experience, the hard work, the danger that this boat has seen? Marina for small boats. And this side of the complex, and here a little park. Simple, nice face on this older building. Whether it's really that old, I don't know. Whether it was always that way, I don't know. But that's also very pretty. Looks like it might have been some kind of administrative building. Reminds me of the building on the main square, St. Mark's, I think it is, in Venice. Although that square is much larger than this one. And the buildings are different all the way around it, I think. Down the face of the palace, if it is, or ever was. What, if anything, we're looking at is original, I don't know. Today, I think this was the fish market, and that's what that lady was hauling away in the sun. Here, that pretty building we were looking at a moment ago entered from the far end from where I was shooting. Columns always make for a pretty effect. This detail on the inside was original. Certainly not to the palace, but how old it is, I don't know. So I don't know if this street is inside the castle or if the whole palace is to the right. On that note, I'll just turn right. Again, these buildings all look like they're 18th century or 19th century buildings. Even a brand new one down. Several examples of the absurdity. For most women, or many women, it is an absurdity, but for many, some they can carry it. Slightly mildly interesting looking street. I still haven't found what I would call the innards of the palace. Some of these buildings at least look old. That's a start. Who knows what this might have been here. So far, nothing of real interest. This was probably a warehouse, but it may not have been. Those may actually be apartments up there. Looks very European, like English or something like that. Mildly interesting view down a side street. This is the square, nothing terribly interesting really. There's a clock tower down there, but it's relatively nondescript, but maybe it's original. In that case, it'd be interesting. Interesting here again, another motif that looks more Western European English than anything.